let's go ahead and get started because there's a ton of information to go through. I'm also going to continue to let people in as we go through. This is today's agenda. I'm going to talk a little bit about what the King County Employee Giving Program is, about the application and eligibility, what to expect over the coming year, and I'm really passionate not just about my program, but also
there was like 19 hours filled in January, and then
but also about workplace giving in general. And I feel that it is an important part of your fundraising toolkit, and one that isn't really touched a lot in the development world. And so I like to kind of talk about some of the benefits of that as well. But I wanted to let you know what we are going to be covering today. So let's get started. The King County Employee Giving Program is the workplace giving program for King County government employees. It's a little confusing because our name sounds a little bit like some of the other ones. Some of you may have heard the King County CFC, but that's actually the combined federal campaign, and that is employees that work for the federal government that just so happen to be located in the geographic boundaries of King County and the Puget Sound area. And there's also the Washington State Combined Fund Drive. Those are state employees. We are all separate, and we have separate application processes. The other reason why I bring that up is to let you know, don't miss out on your opportunity. For example, I know that the Fed's application deadline is this Friday, so make sure that you check that out if you're interested in getting into their program. I can tell you that as far as kind of what our requirements are, the state is the easiest, I'm in the middle, and the Feds is the hardest. But I would like to think that mine is easy, even though it's in the middle. But we'll go over that in a little bit. We are governed by King County Code. Most public sector campaigns are governed by some level of law to make it an official part of workplace business. And our annual giving drive happens in the fall, but that's just one of the things that we do. So the annual giving drive is the most visible part that we do. And last year that was $1.75 million that we raised for nonprofit organizations. But we also handle any natural disaster relief efforts that happen. We are a year-round philanthropic resource. We do policy research and recommendations. And we also will be launching new this next year volunteerism for our employees. So I'm really excited to be able to offer that as well. Our employees may give in three major ways: through payroll donation, time donation, or direct check. Time donation is where employees can give their vacation time. So while public sector workplaces cannot offer matching gifts because that is gifting of public funds, one thing that we can do is allow them to cash out their vacation time in honor of a nonprofit organization in the program. And that is a super cool benefit that is also unique. It's a unique source. We are always trying to be the best that we can be and improve over year after year for you and for our employees. Now, it is sometimes challenging because we have limited resources. I like to say that I am like you guys, and that I steal my Post-its from other people, and I have no money, right? So to do with what I can anyway. But we use continuous improvements, and you're going to see an example of that through this application process. And we are always researching our best practices and methodologies to evaluate and improve the program to be able to better serve you and our employees. There is somebody on the call that does not have their phone muted, but I can't find you to mute you myself. So if you could double check your line, that would be great. Our applications. We have 3 different applications. It's really important that you know who you are so you know which application to fill out. Independent organizations. Independent organizations are most of you on the phone that are on the call today, meaning you are a nonprofit organization that is applying directly to be in the program. So we have a one-to-one relationship. That if nobody is applying to the program on your behalf, then you are probably an independent organization. Federations are our partners that represent other nonprofit organizations. So all of the same eligibility requirements apply to those organizations. It's just that the federation is applying on the nonprofit's behalf, and they become our main contact for everything. Checks, opportunities to participate in things, marketing. So it's this hub or clearinghouse of information exchange. And then governmental units. Governmental units of the state of Washington may apply to be in the program. They have very specific and different requirements. Some are the same, but if you are a governmental unit, then you have a different application. So when you go to my website, make sure that you click on the right link or you'll go to the incorrect application. All organizations can apply online. Everything is online. That's one of the efficiencies that we've introduced to reduce the amount of time that it requires to fill out the application, and also to improve the automation of it overall. One of the top tips that I recommend for organizations, particularly if you are new, is our implementation guide. We have a very detailed implementation guide on our website that provides definitions of all of the things that we're asking about. For example, if we were to do a documentation audit, which there's a chance 10% of our organizations, we will ask for full documentation of everything. That will tell you exactly what we're looking for ahead of time. If you're not sure what we mean, that's the place to go. And it'll also tell you ahead of time whether you're eligible to be in the program. All online application. So this is one of my favorite quotes that we got from one of our nonprofits when we went online first. This was the easiest ask I've had to do in months, possibly years. The only possible improvement would be to have an ounce of high quality chocolate pop out of my computer upon submission. It was very sweet. However, except that the first year we went online, we had a 43% error rate on submissions. Now, this did not necessarily go up or down from when we were all paper. We were just able to measure it better. And the online, however, what the online did do was it improved the amount of time that it took for nonprofit organizations filling out their application, and it was much more convenient. So, but 43% is too high of an error rate. That requires a lot of rework, both for us, but also for you, and doesn't necessarily make the best experience for you at the end. And so we set out, we were like, no, this is unacceptable. We want to improve this experience and make it easier for you. So last year we went out and we watched 8 of our organizations fill out the application. We just literally sat there and watched the process happen to see what kind of barriers that you had to go through to fill it out, and to see where the errors were happening in order to improve our process. We were able to, just by making some improvements to the program that we were using, we were able to reduce the errors from 43% down to 32% last year. But we still feel that is too high. And our goal is to get it below 20%. And so we've made even more improvements this year. New this year, we have a new platform, FormDesk. So if you get an email from FormDesk or me as FormDesk, know that it is legitimate, it is not a phishing email. This platform allows you to now save and return That was one of the biggest requests that we have from our nonprofit organizations, the ability to save your application and return at a later date. Because, for example, let's say you get to a question and you're not really sure, right? So you will need to go get it or research it. Also, um, a lot of organizations, one person is filling out the application, but somebody else needs to look it over and make sure that it's correct. This way, you can do that. You will also see a visual warning for many of our eligibility requirements. And so if you're not eligible, you're going to get a warning right away, as opposed to having to wait for, if you hadn't read the eligibility requirements and implementation guidance, you now don't have to wait. You will get that warning that will say your application may not be eligible. So you'll know instantly, and then you can go and research more to see if you can fix it, what do we need to do. You can email me for more information. For our returning organizations, although we had some bumpies yesterday, so anybody who went through that first thing in the morning, please just ignore the first, well, don't totally ignore the first email. There's some good information in there, but there's always bumpies with something new. But for our returning organizations, I'm really excited because now your information can be pre-populated into the form. There are two ways that you can do this. One, we either have emailed or will be emailing out a secret squirrel link directly to the person that was listed as the main contact on last year's application. Or the other way is that when you come to the form this year and you click that you're returning, if you put in your 4-digit King County Employee Giving Program code, much of your information will pre-populate into the form. I'm super excited about that. It took me a lot of time to get that in there. Now here's what it's going to pre-populate though. It's going to pre-populate what we had on the application from last year. And I'm aware that a lot happens in a year for organizations. Contacts change. There's been tons of contacts change in our CRM. Well, we don't have a CRM right now, and that's part of the issue. We're trying to get a CRM. So being able to manage, literally, there are thousands of you. It becomes a challenge to update all of that information. So it may not be the most updated information, but you will be able to go in and edit all of that and add it in. We are also hoping to use the same system as a place where you at any time can go in and edit that contact information in one place in order to update on the fly throughout the year. We're pretty excited about that. We are also trying to invest in a good CRM system. That way we can continue to serve you even better. So our goal this year is less than 20% error rate. Fewer errors means less time for everyone and better satisfaction for you. So any feedback that you can provide to us on, especially the survey that we ask you to fill out at the end, we really listen to that. All of this comes from the feedback that we get from you. So I welcome it with open arms. So thank you very much for taking a few minutes to fill that out. So tips for the online application. Write down the login information because only one login can be associated with editing the same form. Now, multiple people can go in and start a new form for your organization, but they're not going to necessarily be able to see everything that everybody else did. So make sure that you write down that login information that you create. Read the implementation guide so you have an idea ahead of time. You are going to see these light bulbs with the question mark. Click on that. That means that there's more information and help right there next to the field to make it super easy. For example, if I'm asking for a piece of information and I know that you can get it from a website, I've linked right there to the website, or I've provided an image of what the attachment should look like, things like that, more further definitions. Also, have your required attachments ready ahead of time in a saved folder. When we were out watching the nonprofit organizations, the ones that had the easiest time and were done in like 5 or 10 minutes were the ones that had already put their attachments all together. And so then they knew where they were. It wasn't, they didn't have to go search for them. Also, fields marked with an asterisk are required, and it won't let you move forward until those are answered. We also ask that you submit early. Just to give you an idea, so when I started doing this work 7 years ago, we only processed about 100 applications representing 600 organizations. Last year, we processed almost 600 applications representing nearly 1,000 organizations. There's a shift in the workplace giving world and how that is working. And in fact, I'm going to be writing a blog post about that in a little bit. But what that means is that with the same resources, we are having to do a lot more work. And so the earlier you submit, the more of a chance I have an opportunity to help you if something is wrong. Now, I always, if there is a mistake on this round of applications, I will always give you the opportunity to fix it, but you will need to fix it by the date that I give you in the application. But I try to give you at least a week. So when you get to my website and you click on your application link, we're going to walk through what the independent nonprofit application form looks like, and we're going to walk through it from a new nonprofit perspective because that's where the most questions are, and it provides the overarching, all of the details, right? So returning, that you're going to be able to have some of your information, so we're going to be pre-populated in there, and federations and governmental units will know that some of their questions will be a little different, but the process is the same. When you get to here, this is what it will look like. So our new system, while it is super cool, it's not super pretty. So it's very basic, but it totally does the job. It's functional. You are going to register as a new visitor to the website. So then you will put in your name, your email address. You're going to create a username and password, and then click next, and it will take you to the beginning of our form. Like I said, that's where you will write down that information so you have it. Or you can, some of our browsers now just remember that information, which is really nice. If you are returning, if you use the secret squirrel link that I email out to you, this is the screen that you will see. So you will see your application already there, and you will click on the little pencil over the contact card looking thing. That's actually an edit button, and that will open up your form for you to go through and see what's already in there and edit and finish it up and submit. Now, you will also see that it says fill out a new form. Some of our organizations, I don't know if Tanya is on the call today from Multicare, but she is responsible for filling out 3 or 4 applications for different nonprofit organizations. So you'll be able to fill out however many forms you need for the organizations that you are representing. When you get to the form, this is what it will look like. That header will always be at the top. That gray and black bar is the progress bar to let you know how far you are throughout the application. Here is where you will click whether you are new or returning. The major difference is the welcome screen and what questions you will see. I've tried not to ask you questions that you don't need to answer. There's a lot of conditional logic in the form, in the application. This screen right here has a lot of information on it to help you be successful for your application and many of the items that we are covering today, with links to different places where you can get the information, also some frequently asked questions. Again, much of the information that we are doing today. So our number one error, and so you will see that I have highlighted this in several places, is the copy of the Washington Secretary of State letter confirming registration with the Charitable Solicitations Program. I have put an example there, and you can click on it and it will make it even bigger so you can see more of it. And then you will click Next to continue. There are, like I said, 3 attachments that you will need if you're new. Returning organizations only need 1 because I already have the other 2 on file for you. Everyone will need that Washington Secretary of State Charitable Solicitations registration. Now, this one is the reason this one is the #1 error is 1, there's no way for me to mistake proof this as you're submitting it. And 2, it's because for organizations that are incorporated here in Washington, our Secretary of State is actually responsible for 3 different items that for our nonprofit organizations. They are responsible for, if you are a charitable trust, that registration. They are responsible for if you are for your incorporation. So as a business, so basically your business license, they're responsible for that. And then they're also responsible for this Washington Secretary of State Charitable Solicitations registration. Now, this is the one that I want because we don't care if you are, they don't care, we don't care if you are incorporated here in Washington. You can be incorporated in Florida or Montana or New York, but regardless of where you are incorporated, if you want to solicit donations here in Washington, then you need to be registered with this office, and that is what we're looking for. And the example, look at my example, and it will show you some of the language and key indicators on it that will let you know that you have the right attachment. Also, for our new organizations, we also need a King County W-9. Do not use the federal W-9. We have a King County specific one that we need filled out. You can download the blank from that beginning homepage. You can download it from my webpage. There's lots of places where you can download it and fill it out. We also need a copy of your IRS Determination Letter. This is the only year, though your first year is the year that we ask for those. Once you stay in good standing with the program, we don't need it year after year because those things generally don't change. This is a big example of the Secretary of State. The key thing is that the date in the letter, in the body of the letter, so not the date they send it to you, but the date in the body of the letter needs to be after April 21st, 2016. The good news is that the Secretary of State, they mail this to you. And if you have lost it or can't find it, you can order a new one from the website, and I've included a link to where you can order a new one. I believe it's only $5, and they send it to you electronically. We cannot accept a PDF of the website that shows your registration because the state includes a big disclaimer on it that says we basically can't, nobody should be using this to totally verify, confirmation of registration. Like there's this giant disclaimer. So we can't use that. We have to have a copy of this letter. Here is the example of the King County W-9. So you'll know because our big logo will be up in the upper left-hand corner. And here's a copy of your IRS Tax Determination Letter. Some of these are, literally from 1934. So yeah, we just need it the one time unless it's changed. The first section of the online application is your nonprofit information. This is the stuff that's used for internal program purposes. So your official nonprofit name, your federal tax ID, well, we also use that for donors. Physical address, we do require a physical address, but we give you the opportunity to put it in a mailing address, and then also should checks be mailed to the above address. And if no, then another address line will pop up for you to be able to populate. Then for Section 1, contact information. On the next page, this is where you put in or will already see much of your contact information. So we have a nonprofit main contact, local contact, and then also finance contact. You can tell me if it's the same as the main, same as the local, or someone different. If it's someone different, then another box will pop up so you can put in their information. Don't forget this person. This is the person who processes your checks and who will be getting donor information from me, things like that. And those are the ones that I hear from throughout the year when we're outside of the annual giving drive. So that's the place to put them. Section 2 is organizational information. So what I want you to ask yourself in Section 2 is, how would a potential donor look for me? So this is where your DBA goes, you're doing business as. The things that people are familiar with, if you think that they will look for you with the, then put the first. But in most cases, people are looking alphabetical. And so I would recommend either removing the or putting the at the end. I often will move the because when there are 1,000 organizations, we want to make it as easy as possible for people to look for you. This is also, you can tell me what published address that you want, your website. If no website, please write no website. Your Twitter and Facebook page, these are not required, but it's a great way for us to stay connected on social media. Your nonprofit short description. So this is 150 characters without spaces. Do not include the nonprofit name in this section. This is important real estate, and we're going to put your name right above it. So there's no reason to double your name. There will be another opportunity to provide more information once you are accepted into the program. And there is a character counter. Now, it's set up for 180 because it can't distinguish between blank, spaces and characters. But that's about, we do 150 characters without spaces when we do the final calc for publication. You will then be asked to choose your major categories of service. Your primary category is where your main listing will be at in most of our materials, but you can also choose a second choice and a third choice, and that is where you will be listed for other nonprofits doing work in this area. And in our online search functionality helps bring up more, basically more exposure for you. So do please consider choosing 3 choices, but at the very least we need the first one. We will also be asking about some links to any reviews or ratings that you've received from Better Business Bureau, GuideStar, and Charity Navigator. That is not required. That is simply to provide more information to our donors. Section 3 goes into more detail about the eligibility requirements. These were based on industry best practices and 2 years worth of research to create these. And they've been in place, these eligibility requirements have been in place now for 4 years. I think this is our 4th year. So recognized by the IRS as having a tax-exempt status under Section 501c3 or as a governmental unit of the state of Washington. Current registration with the Washington Secretary of State Charitable Solicitations Office, RCW 1909. A firm adherence to or claim a legal exemption from the non-discrimination policy. And then, of course, turn in a complete and on-time application. In fact, applications, write-ins are not allowed during our annual giving drive. So this is the time of year to get in. And this is what some of the questions look like on the application for those eligibility requirements. Here you will also provide a link to your charitable solicitations registration information on the Secretary of State's website. I have included, if you don't already have that link, you can search yourself, by clicking on the hyperlink above, and it will take you directly to their search functionality. Also, if you click on the light bulb, you will see that I've indicated what the URL should look like. This is another error that we get. Oftentimes folks send me a link to their corporation information, and again, that's not the one that I want or need, and that's so that would be an error. So if you cannot find yourself in this search functionality, you may have to call the Secretary of State to make sure that you're have you registered. I'll be honest, my application is often the reminder for a lot of the nonprofit organizations that they need to do this. Or they may not, they've grown quite a bit in the last year or two, and they may not realize that they need to do it. And so if that is the case, then call me and we will talk about how to document your registration for the Secretary of State. Also, under length of existence, so one of our requirements is that you've been providing real services for 3 years. We also ask for your date of incorporation. So here's that: providing or conducting real services, benefits, assistance, or program services for 3 years. One of our requirements is also that there's an active governing board whose members have a firm adherence to a conflict of interest policy, and a majority of whom serve without compensation. And any compensated members do not serve as the board's chair or treasurer. We detail out what all of this means on our eligibility requirements and implementation guide. For folks who have not put in place a conflict of interest policy, we actually provide a link to an example conflict of interest policy that you can put in place for your board. So we do try to help you, if you're not already there, get there. We also have a tiered financial requirement for our nonprofit organizations. Annual financial statement prepared in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Now, for our smaller nonprofit organizations, sometimes this can be confusing because most of them run on a cash basis. Well, what GAAP says is that if you basically are less than $50,000 or all volunteer and don't owe anybody money and nobody owes you money, there's no material difference between cash and accrual accounting. So you'll want to look at that to find out if you meet those requirements. Another thing that is perfectly acceptable is that you run on cash throughout the year, but then do your year-end financial statements in accrual. We also have our audit or our tiered financial review requirements. Within the fiscal period not ending more than 18 months prior to January 2016, and so we do ask for what financial statement are you reporting on in this application, and we need the annual period, so say January 1, 2015 through December 31st, 2015, or some folks have the split year. We will ask for what that financial statement year is. For greater than 1 million, we require an audit. For under 1,250,000, we require a financial review by a certified public accountant. And under 250,000, we require an internally produced complete financial statement, more specifically, that was presented to the board of directors. Now, we know that a lot of our organizations receive a huge amount of their annual gross income in kind. And so we have this decision tree for this only applies to our organizations that have an annual gross income of more than 1 million. Do you receive in-kind donations? If no, then we require an audit. If yes, then the next question is, do you receive $500,000 or less in cash? If no, then you still have the audit requirement. If yes, then you can do the second level, which is the financial review by a CPA. Then there are certifications. In compliance with Washington state laws, won't sell or distribute donor list, provide documentation upon request. truth in advertising, basically, use of materials that we can use your materials for information and marketing, eligibility revocation in cases of fraud and changes of status, that you're in compliance with U.S. regulations and OFAC, and that the application is true and correct. And then you will click submit. And it will probably take you less time to fill out the application than it took us to go through those first 32 slides. The average amount of time that people reported last year was between 15 and 20 minutes to fill out the entire application. They are due online by Thursday, April 21st, 2016. Don't forget that part, because turning in the application is a big part of it. And it happens that folks think that they have applied to our program, but I never received anything. And usually some of that confusion comes in because they've actually applied to the federal campaign or the state, and they think we're all together, and we're not. This is a overview of what a nonprofit the cycle looks like for the King County Employee Giving Program. This helps folks who are like, wait a minute, so I'm just now receiving my pledge reports and first, money from last year's application. Why am I being asked to apply again? I thought I was already in the program. Well, that's kind of how it works. So you are applying now for our annual giving drive that happens in the fall for distributions that result from that next year. So because our employees and fundraising happens in the fall, but especially for payroll donations, don't actually start coming out of their paychecks until January. And so that's why there's this overlap. So it's entirely possible that you are receiving money from last year's annual giving drive, but you are not or have not applied or not eligible for the coming year. But we don't want that to be the case. We want to keep you year to year, because especially if somebody is already giving to you. This is more specifically what our ideal cycle looks like. So you're applying now. There will be an appeals process for folks that are denied. The appeals are really designed for technical things that need to be fixed. We don't usually make actual exceptions to the eligibility criteria themselves. And then the annual giving drive happens in the fall. We do a lot of special events and things like that during the annual giving drive. And so any checks or money orders that come in during that time will be mailed directly out to your organizations as they come in at that time. And then you will begin to get this year. It wasn't until February, but our goal is to have out by the end of January the pledge reports to you of that annual giving drive, of what you either raised and or will be receiving in the coming year. And then time donations, that vacation that I was talking to you about earlier in the presentation, those are the first checks to hit from the new from the annual giving drive. And then you will receive quarterly checks from us, and those will come April, July, October, January, February, from after the end of the quarter. We also provide that pledge report that says, okay, this is what has been pledged for the year, and for anybody who releases their information, all of their data. We recommend, not just for us, but for all of your workplace giving, that you recognize donors and send a thank you at the point of pledge, not with the individual checks, because that's confusing, right? Especially since when they signed up and how it's happening for them is going to be different than when you get it, because of the way that workplace giving works. Not to mention, one of the perks of workplace giving is that technically you should be able to do less direct mail. And so send them the thank you at the point of pledge. They also don't need, unless you want to do it, any tax documentation from you. Per the IRS, we have all of that documentation for them. So you don't actually need to provide that. But with each quarterly check, we will provide you with an actual report, meaning, okay, so that was what was pledged, but let's say somebody leaves employment, for example, or they're just on a leave and so nothing's coming out of their paycheck, or somebody new comes along, which is rare. We don't have a lot of mid-year signups, but that way you can reconcile back to the initial pledge report. So you will get both sets of reports. Plus, I know everybody does their accounting a little differently. But we try to provide that for you. We have 13,000 King County employees here. And so you are automatically, if nothing else, being marketed. They can find you on our website. You have this presence to 13,000 people who have jobs, which is really exciting when it comes to fundraising. And our folks here are super engaged. During our most recent employee engagement survey, we had something like 40% of our employees indicate that they use a major product of the employee giving program. So that's pretty impressive in my opinion, especially since we don't offer matching gifts. You will be also given the opportunity to provide more marketing information. We use this information on social media. We use it for posters. We use it for handouts. We use it in all kinds of different ways to help educate our workforce here. This is what your online listing will look like for us. This is a public-facing website, and so it is also another opportunity for you to have a presence on the internet. And so our employees can get lots of information. This website is used all year long by folks. So why workplace giving in general? If you haven't already built in a plan to your development plan for workplace giving, I highly recommend it. I am super passionate about it in general. I love what it can do for companies. I love the power that it can provide to the community and to the nonprofit organizations. Something like $1 billion is left on the table each year from nonprofit organizations missed out on matching gifts from private sector companies. That just boggles my mind. We are also seeing a huge shift with Impact 2030. If you haven't already heard about that, Google it. It is the leveraging of corporate volunteers to help meet the global sustainable development goals. And so there's just going to be more and more partnerships that happen between companies and nonprofit organizations in making real sustainable difference. And so by knowing how you fit into that picture now and learning more about it and being strategic, I think that you can really maximize those partnerships. This is just one of the benefits is workplace giving is very cost effective for nonprofit organizations. And I get really excited to share that because admittedly sometimes we get the question of, oh, it costs money. Well, in the public sector, unlike the private sector, a lot of our private sector colleagues, especially here in the Seattle and King County area, can fully subsidize the cost of their workplace giving. But that doesn't mean that it's free. We can't do that in the public sector. But the good and exciting news is that it is still one of the most cost-effective ways to raise money for your organization. And I love getting to share that good news. Our average cost here at the King County Employee Giving Program has been about 11 cents to raise and administer $1. And that comes out of, so there's no cost up front, that comes out of the checks that we send to you, and we detail that on every report that we send out to you. Now that can vary because it's real cost. So it's not a flat fee, like it's real cost for the year. Just like you, I have a budget and I look at it for the year. And if there's any money left at the end of the year, it goes back to you. Usually that fourth quarter check will have a lower percentage rate. So it's real cost. And that's also why I really hard not to spend money unless I know that it's going to have a good value on return for you and for the employees. The county is part of it. Part of it is that they are providing all of the employees that are working to raise money on your behalf out in the work sites, right? With 13,000 employees, it's pretty challenging for one person to reach all of those. And so they help provide some assistance through that, some administrative assistance throughout the year, and in other ways. So we're really sharing. But the cost to the nonprofits is only 11. It's been 11 cents for the last 3 years. Also, some other benefits is that we have that unique revenue source, which is time donation. These are unrestricted dollars, so you can use them where they are most needed. I am a huge advocate of the fact that if you can't turn on your lights, you cannot provide your programs. I mean, that's just the reality of it. And I know a lot of people don't understand that part of nonprofit, but I came from the nonprofit world. I get how important it is to be able to have that foundation in order to provide all of those other things, right? And that's what's nice about workplace giving dollars is that they are unrestricted. You can use them where you need them most. Our disaster relief organizations or emergency organizations, you don't know. You don't know when something is going to happen. You have to be ready with unrestricted dollars before it even happens to be able to respond in the way that you need to. Also, it is very donor-centric. For our employees, they can give all in one place at one time. They can remain anonymous. It's one of the few ways that folks can remain anonymous and still have everything they need for their taxes. So imagine from a donor's perspective how cool that is and what a convenience to be able to go in and they can give up to 20 organizations by payroll donation and then have all of the stuff that they need. It is efficient. You get one report and one check from me instead of several, saving you staff time and energy. And I will provide those reports both in a PDF that is, more visually easier to read and has the breakdown of everything. And then I also provide a plain Jane Excel spreadsheet that you can easily upload into your system. It is also, like I said earlier, it's low risk because there are no upfront costs other than filling out the application, the time that it takes to fill out the application. That's it. That's the risk that you're putting up front. So if you don't get anything, it doesn't cost you anything, which cannot be said for most other fundraising methodologies out there. And then also low attrition over the course of a year. I have less than a 3% attrition rate, and that's really exciting. We've also been continuing to go up in dollars raised year over year, bucking national trends, which is very exciting. Then, of course, the marketing presence and leverage. So even if you don't get a lot of dollars, you are gaining visibility for your organization with a major employer in the state of Washington and their employees. And so that is, also a benefit of the program. This is one of the things that I talk about a lot, especially to my employees. So when I started here at King County, before I've even had this job, I started giving just like $5 a paycheck to, I think, 4 organizations. Those same 4 organizations I am still giving to today, plus more, right? So we're talking 13 years that I've been giving to 4 core organizations. Not to mention, we know the research that a lot of our workplace giving partners have done have shown that people can give 3 to 6 times more in the course of a year than they can with a one-time gift because they're able to Well, spread out the pain, feel the pain a little less in order to spread the love a little more. And I know that that is completely true. For me, I finally became the philanthropist that I've always wanted to be. I'd done a ton of fundraising and I had done board work and volunteerism, but I'd always wanted to be able to write that check. And now all of a sudden my employer was telling me that I could do that. And so we literally empower employees and donors to move from buying a book to building a library, to becoming a one-time giver in the moment, to a lifetime cultivated donor for the organization. Payroll donation is just, it's an amazing, amazing tool for our nonprofit partners. So, do you have any questions? We have 8 minutes technically left. Feel free to type them into the chat bar over on the left-hand side. And as a reminder, I am recording this, and so it will be available to view again probably tomorrow. I'm going to upload it this afternoon and then send out an email. So feel free to type in any questions you may have over in the chat box. Otherwise, I'm done with my presentation for today. And so if you don't have any questions and just want to get started, you can head off to our website and give it a go, or hang out to see the questions and answers.